There we go. Got the clock. That's good. Now we go over here. That's there. That's good. Okay, just gotta click on that. We're good there, and I forgot to pop out the chat, so I'll do that. Hey, that rhymed. And that, and this, and that, and I think we're all good. I apologize for being a bit late. I use XSplit, and XSplit had some sort of relatively major update all of a sudden, which I had to reauthorize my YouTube token. I don't even know what that means, but I had to basically follow a bunch of prompts. And of course, it doesn't tell you that until you try to go live, which I kind of wish they would pop up a thing going, hey, we're going to ask for that. You should look now versus when you're trying to go live. Alrighty, well, we've got a lot of folks here in the thing. We've got 248 according to the little number down. No, all right, there. So that's something. I'm glad to see you people. I hope you're being safe. We've had a lot of conversation. Yes, Witless Fop. It's not like Adam to be late. Hope he's okay. I am. I blame XSplit. So we're good there. We've got Oregon, Brooklyn. Good morning, afternoon from a rainy and windy Iceland. Good morning from Massachusetts. We've got Bristol. We've got Robin Hood country. We've got, let's see, we've got lots of places. Malaysia, Central Texas, England, Las Vegas, Sweden, San Antonio, Delaware, Connecticut, Belgium, Atlanta, Lockdown, Ireland, Manitoba, Cambridge, Knoxville, Texas, Florida, Colorado. We've got, let's see here, Bulgaria, Poland, sunny Iowa. It is not sunny here. Canada, Germany, Scotland. We've got Malaysia, Minnesota, Memphis, South Carolina, Britain, surprisingly sunny South Wales, Mississippi, Cincinnati, Kansas, Poland, Chicago, Netherlands, Normandy, France. We've got, let's see here, New Hampshire, Peoria. Got a bunch of people here, so that's good. Emily is checking in. Good morning. I'm lurking at work from home. I love my coworkers. They are so fluffy. Emily has 3 cute dogs. I have seen plenty of pictures, which is great. In the title card from today's video, right here, those are 2 of the cats looking outside. Now, here's the deal. Like, this to me was like, oh, we're so sad we can't go outside. They never go outside. Margot is on the right and Maggie is on the left, and they're sisters. They never go outside. In that picture, all things actually honest, they were looking at a squirrel. So, but I felt it kind of meant it was, like us. We're kind of like looking outside a lot. Although technically you can go outside, go for a walk, hang out in your yard, stuff like that. Just don't get near people, is what we're all being told. So there's that. Pushing up the glasses. Let's see here. Greetings from Norway, Stuttgart. We've got Quebec. What else have we got? Queensbury, Bangor, Maine. Sunny and cold today. We've got Cleveland, Ohio. TJ Menzies says, Uncle Adam, I have to blame / thank you. Your talk about Star Wars Legions convinced me to pull the trigger on the first core set, which has been a great change of pace from the GW stuff that I'm used to. Yeah, they're like super. They're very different. At least those particular models. The clone, not the clone troopers. In the second set, the droids are a little bit more. They're like an sprue and harder plastic and stuff like that. Yeah. Wing It Gaming says, I thought they were wolves. Oh. No, kitties. That's interesting. Let's see here. K. Mallet says, yesterday out of boredom, I watched lots of YouTube clips from Uncle Adam. Forgot your hair wasn't always gray. Mine is starting to gray too. Yeah, it was gray. I've technically had gray hair, or some gray hairs, since I think high school. I had like a couple, popping up and stuff like that. So it's been there for a long time. It has accelerated over the last, I don't know. I've been doing this channel now 7 years since I started the channel. The channel started like on the 28th of February 2013 or something like that, so I just recently passed 7 years. But yeah, if you go back and look at some of the older videos, my hair was darker, certainly. Let's see here. Forrest Gumps is finally painting up that droid army for Legion. So excited, but these buggers are insane. Yeah, I've heard that the little skinny ass droids are real hard to build. That is problematic. Yeah, let's see here. Greetings from Gothenburg. Just got a batch of Victrix plastic Vikings and Gales. So if it hits lockdown, I should be fine. Well, that's good to hear. Dylan says, today I start my Warcry building. Well, good luck. Absolutely. We've got moderator Matt in the house. This is like house arrest all over again. I don't remember you being house arrested, but I haven't known you for that long, honestly. So only since like 2012. So anyway, good to see moderator Matt. Let's see. George Plum says, "Hey everyone from Worcestershire again. Got a shout out last show, Adam, to help pronounce it. I just messed it all up again. So stay safe, people. There we go. Good. That's the message. I think is what we're looking for. Stay safe." Older Sam video also was not as swole. No, he's been working on that swole thing for a number of years now. But yeah, earliest videos he was a skinnier dude. So yeah. Not that he's not skinny now. He's just, but there's a difference between skinny and swole. This is swole right here, like that. I don't know what that means. I am not swole. Let's see. What else? As a Winnipegger, I've recently got into Frostgrave. Have you ever played? Yeah, I've played a little bit of Frostgrave. I would like to play more. I'm also... same guy who writes Frostgrave is a game called Rangers of Shadowdeep, which was originally self-published, and you got it either as a PDF or a print-on-demand book from like Drive-Thru RPG, those companies, like that, RPG Now, whatever you call them these days. But you still can, I think for now you might still be able to, but soon, because that game Rangers of Shadowdeep got picked up by Modiphius. So now Modiphius, which is a publishing company for games, they're going to be publishing it, and so it'll be a fancier version or whatever. But I don't know. I still like Rangers of Shadowdeep, like the original version, just fine. So yeah, definitely. Let's see here. I really should get my Space Wolves finished before the release of the new box set. No, the new box set's coming. Andrew Jarvis has just picked up Flames of War, Hit the Beach. Love my Shermans. Yeah, I'm a big Sherman fan too. I wish I liked Flames of War a little bit more, or at least I wish more people in my area played it, but it's not been the thing lately, so. Nox Starfox says, I built the starter Warcry models, but I haven't started the terrain. Should probably get on that. Yeah, I want to get started on the terrain. I've started building the Corvus Cabal. They're hard to build, by the way. Real skinny bird dudes. But I do want to get that stuff done, too. I want to get the terrain going. Dax the Destroyer says, is it wrong I ordered Monster Apocalypse to play with my son during this time because it feels so right? No, I don't think it's wrong at all. I think that playing games with your kids right now is going to be a super good idea. I think it's going to be super important. Wing It Gaming asks, should I use Minis paint to paint my terrain? I have a tendency to use some mini paint, but I also sometimes use craft paint, like the stuff that you get from like Walmart or Hobby Lobby or whatever. I don't know, the stuff that's in the big bottles. what do you call it, like apple barrel sometimes. I mean, it depends on mini paint is really super useful on minis. It's not a good idea to paint other, like minis with craft paint because the pigments are so big. Sam and I just talked about that recently in a video. That being said, it's not bad for terrain unless you want your terrain to look really super fancy, really tight, really good. Then you probably want to stick with mini paint there, but then it's going to probably cost more because terrain is bigger and you need more paint and whatever. I have a tendency, honestly, to use a lot of like airbrush or rattle can to do the base colors, and then I go through and do some dry brushing and stuff like that. So the only time I really use craft paint myself anymore for terrain is if I'm going to do if I'm going to do like a big foam hill that I might have built, or if I built something out of like foam core or something like that, like something big, then I'll use that stuff. I used it. I've got one of the old Realm of Battle boards that GW originally made, those 2 foot by 2 foot boards. You got 6 of them and it made a 4x6. And it was like kind of hills, and there were cracks in the ground, and there were skulls underneath the cracks in the ground. Like the entire planet's made out of skulls, but that's a GW thing. That totally makes sense. There's like the hilly bits and the rocky outcrops. Those I used basically craft paint. It was just dry brushing, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it kind of depends. Let's see here. What else have we got? X-Hydrant says, I have no one to play with on the regular. How do I keep motivated to play? Well, right now it's kind of tough, obviously. That's going to be kind of a thing for a while. There are, like I mentioned in Friday's video, there are games out there, like computer-type games that allow you to play desktop stuff, like tabletop stuff. Let me try to get those words together. There are computer games out there that allow you to play tabletop games. Tabletop Simulator, the other ones, Vassal, I think was another one I said. And I know there's another one, like if you're into board games specifically, there's one called Tabletopia, which I've heard of is pretty cool too. But yeah, it's Tabletop Simulator out of all of those is the 3Dist probably, and also the most kind of open-ended. For my day job currently, like Game 4, obviously right now, like connecting tabletop gamers is not necessarily a good idea in real space because we can't do that. So we're already starting to think about different ways to be able to figure out like how to connect tabletop gamers through, non-real space or whatever. So yeah, like we've just started thinking about that since all this has gone south last week. So yeah, we're working on it, definitely. But that's kind of the trick right now, unfortunately. Uncle Jarvis asks, Uncle Adam, what color brand did you use on your Shermans from Flames of War? For the color? Gosh. I think I probably used some sort of Vallejo. I think I might have used a Vallejo model color. I just don't remember which one. Honestly, it was super long ago when I painted those, like 2014 maybe. If you go way back in my Instagram, actually you'll find pictures of them when I used to play a little bit, like way back in my Instagram. Let's see here. Shadespire just came out on Steam and is free to play. Yeah, that's the Warhammer Underworlds Online, or WUO. That's hard to say. But yeah, yeah, definitely. Let me see. What else have we got? I'm seriously considering getting the Prophecy of the Wolf box, but I only play orcs, not interested in the Space Wolves. Well, I mean, if you've got a friend who might be interested, you could do that. What other people will do is they'll just sell the other half. Oh, that squirrel is back. Luckily the cats haven't seen it yet. Other people will just like sometimes sell the other half on eBay or something like that. So that's something you can look at too. John Watts says, thank you for turning me on to Star Breach. I love building the different warbands with the minis I have lying around. Yeah, I was painting yesterday afternoon, and I was working on my Star Breach warband, my second one. So they've all been built. Their base has been textured. I primed them all black. that was done quite some time ago. And I also zenithal white from above with my airbrush. I did not use white ink because I didn't have any yet, but now I have white ink, so I've been looking into trying to use that for zenithal. I've been hearing good things. Anyway, so yesterday I started doing colors on them, and I'm just basically doing very simple blockout colors, mainly with secret weapon miniatures. Oh, by the way, I think right now I'm not 100% sure. Secret Weapon Miniatures is doing a Kickstarter, which everybody does Kickstarters, but they're making these cool new bases. Like the Secret Weapon Miniatures makes bases; they make resin 3-dimensional bases, but now they're making pre-colored. They're like printed bases, but the printing is so thick on them that it's actually kind of bumpy and 3-dimensional. Like there's like a wood one, there's like a stone one, there's like a temple floor one. Just do a Google search for Secret Weapon Miniatures Kickstarter. It's they're really cool. I've seen them in person, and like when you see the pictures never do them justice because you're just like, okay, it's like a sticker that's printed on there, but it's not a sticker at all. It's this incredibly super. So if you've gotten a filling in the last couple of years, I guess, and I've gotten a couple. Well, not in the last couple of years, but last decade. If you've gotten a filling, they're not metal anymore. They're this kind of like tooth-colored stuff, and they have to cure it with UV. It's that same material, but they've added pigment to it, and then they can print it, almost like an inkjet printer, onto the bases, and then cure it with UV, so it is nearly hard as teeth, but in full color and stuff. It's really cool. So check that out. I saw them first, actually last year's Adepticon. He showed me some prototypes kind of on the sly. And then I also saw them at LVO this year, and so yeah, they just started with that. Anyway, I forgot why I was talking about that. Oh yeah, Secret Weapon washes. So Secret Weapon washes are really technically more glazes. I've also been using in this project yesterday a little bit of contrast paint here and there too, but I'm just doing very simple blockout. I'm going to be taking pictures of this stuff so you can kind of see what I'm going to be doing, and then I'll be doing the AK Interactive streaking grime over it again, like I did on my first warband, so they look kind of grungy. But you're going to be, I think, pretty surprised at how quickly you can get stuff done with that stuff. I really enjoy it. Anyway, let's see what else. Would the Prophecy of the Wolf be a good set for Kill Team? Well, it looks like from the pictures I saw yesterday that it looks like a lot of the Space Wolf dudes are not regular Reavers or Primaris. They are I think they're Infiltrators. And Infiltrators are not a standard kill team group. You can take Infiltrators as an elite choice, but you can only take so many. So I don't think you could build a kill team out of mostly Infiltrators. I could be wrong, but it looked like, I just noticed that a bunch of them looked kind of like Reavers, but their backpacks had all these extra weird antennas on them. And I'm like, and then I remembered Shadow Spear, and I'm like, I think those are Infiltrators. And like I said, you can take a couple of Infiltrators if you go with Elites, the Elite rule set in Kill Team. But if you go with the core normal base rule set, then the only thing you can really take for Space Marines is Tactical Marines, Primaris Marines, Scouts. Maybe that's about it. I could be wrong. And Reavers. Duh. Yeah, Reavers. So Reavers and basically it's Reavers and Primaris and Scouts and Tactical Marines, which, yeah. David Barker asks, are there lighter alternatives to the Deltoff or Detolf or whatever the heck it's called, clear display case from IKEA? Maybe. Not from IKEA, I don't know. That's a good question. Lord Draconum says that Kickstarter, they took it down when I looked for it. I think it's going to be starting up again soon. So what happened is when they put it up, they put it up so a thing where you're like, okay, well, all you have to do is put in $1, and then later on you can add to your thing, you can add to your pledge to get the ones you want. There's a new one now that's either started or is about to start where they're going to do it differently, because what happened was everyone was like, okay, cool, I'll put in $1. And then they're like, well, great, now we've got $600. But you know what I mean? I don't know what the background was behind that as a concept, but yeah. So yeah, if it's not up right now, take a look for it because they're cool. They're cool bases. Like they don't work. Like if you want your guys to be standing on all kinds of cool bumpy rocks and stuff like that, they're obviously not going to work. But if you're doing like, they're great for Infinity because they've got great cool sci-fi ones. They're great for what's the other thing? The Sisters of Battle because they've got cool cathedral floors, and those should be relatively flat anyway. So yeah, they're neat looking. I almost sort of want to get a set of them like the sci-fi ones for something, maybe for Reality's Edge, that Cyberpunk skirmish game or something like that, or just to try them out. I don't know. I could use them for Star Breach, I guess, too. Let me see here. Where are we at? Infiltrators are in Kill Team Elites. There's no limit on the number you can take in a kill team, but they're not effective enough that you'd want a team of nothing but them, says Zingbo. So that's, yeah, I have not looked real hard, but yeah, that's probably the case. Jay Plasma says, I found the Kickstarter. It's back up with 17 days left, says Vose Noctum. So it is up there. They did take one down just recently to reconfigure it and put it back up again. So if you're interested in that, take a look at them. They're really kind of cool. Some of those would be great for Blackstone Fortress. That's also true. Yeah, I forgot about those. They also have like a set that looks very much like the tiles for Blackstone Fortress. So if you want to play Blackstone Fortress, you could just buy these and then stick them on there, and there you go. Michael Wright says, last time I was into 40K, it was terrible, circa 2003, 2004. Then I got back into it about 2014 and still experienced the same frustrations. Millions of rules and books. Is 8th ed more accessible and fun? Generally, yes. 8th edition brought a lot of folks back. I got into the modeling like in 2nd, but I never really played the game. I started playing in 5th, and 5th was like okay, and then 6th, in my opinion, kind of got worse, and then 7th got even worse, and then I stopped playing, and I started playing other stuff. And then when 8th came out, I got into 8th and enjoyed it, but then Kill Team came out, and I enjoyed Kill Team a lot more. Kill Team and 8th edition honestly share a lot of rules. There's also some differences, but the rules are quite similar. It's just that with Kill Team, the reason I like it so much is because instead of having to build an entire 1,500 to 2,000 point army, I can build 9 guys and then be like, hey, that's cool. That was a lot of fun. Now I'm going to build 9 different guys from a different army. So as I've said a whole bunch of times before, it's got that whole kind of buffet feel where I can build a little bit of this guy and some Tyranids and some Adeptus Mechanicus and some Tau and that kind of stuff. Those are the next 3 that are on my paint desk is Tyranids, Adeptus Mechanicus, and Tau. Although the last game that I played, I got slaughtered by Tau, like really hard. So maybe they're going to get bumped up right after the Tyranids. Tyranids are primed, so they're going to go next. And I'm also looking for... What am I looking for? Oh, I want to use the color-changing paints from Turbo Dork on my Tyranids to make them look all... I don't know. Kind of, like when you see those beetles that look kind of black, but then you look at them and you move them around the light and they kind of reflect between like green and purple. That's kind of what I want. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Let's see. What else have we got? Melanie Dawn. Hey, Melanie, how you doing? Uncle Adam or the Hive Mind. I'm getting out of anything GW. I need suggestions for skirmish/board games I can get into. I prefer sci-fi, but I'm good with anything fun. If you're looking for sci-fi skirmish games, I would tell you to look at Star Breach. It is free. You can download the PDF for free. They do have a deluxe version of the PDF. They're also going to be selling a softcover book soon. But Star Breach. I've been playing it. It's pretty cool. It's got a... I lost my Kleenex here. Don't touch your face, kids. Just FYI. Even if it itches, use a Kleenex or something. Star Breach. Yeah, so it uses a alternating kind of activation, much like bolt action, where you throw dice into a bag. Let's say I have 8 figures on the table and you've got 6 because some of them are bigger, more points, whatever. We throw dice into the bag. I have 8 blue dice. You have 6 green dice, so they're roughly the same size. We reach into the bag, pull out a green die. That's one of your guys, so you get to activate. Then another green die, you get to activate. Oh, then a blue die, then I get to activate. And it goes like that. So it's not alternating. It's more random. But it's kind of quick. It's fun. So yeah, check it out. If you just do a search for Starbreach, it might just be starbreach.com. I forget. But yeah, definitely. That's something to take a look at. Like I said, free PDF you can download. They're a very DIY group. They work with Slow Death Games, who makes Wild in the Streets, which is another very DIY group. Again, free rule set download on the website, so check that out. I enjoy it, and it's what I've been building. I'm building 2 different warbands for my Starbreach stuff. If you go look at my Instagram, you can see the first one, at least some of the work on the first one. I haven't taken finished pictures yet, but I will be soon, because not going anywhere. Let's see. Got started playing 2nd edition 40K. If you had more than 40 models per side, it was an ordeal. Smaller games were less arduous and headache-inducing. Yeah, I can understand that. That makes sense. Let's see. Got a lot of conversation back and forth, which I like to see. Hold the door. Have you seen anything on the Elder Scrolls minigame? I think it's like Frostgrave. I've seen some of the minis, pictures, and I think I even saw some of the minis at... Did I see some of the minis at a convention? I don't remember. I know I've seen other pictures and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a cool... I'm kind of interested, but I do want to see the rulebook and stuff like that. I've talked with some of the folks at Modifius about it. I should probably try to reach out and see if I can learn more about it, I guess. Check out their website at the very least. But I did have some conversations. Like, I was walking through Gen Con last year, and one of the folks from Modifius came up to me and was like, "Hey, Uncle Adam," and we chatted for a while, and it was nice. He was a nice guy. Let's see here. 5 parsecs from home if you want a terrific solo sci-fi game that is miniatures agnostic. I know I've heard of that. I'm going to take a picture. Where are we? 5 parsecs from home. Poke. All right. Let's see here. What else? I'm looking forward to catching up on some painting and writing with some of the time off work. The financial and physical implications of our current situation are less pleasant. Yeah, that is very true. Christopher Hartford says, I missed your convention presentations about YouTube channels. Have you thought about releasing a presentation either as paid download or Patreon tier? I mean, I've kicked around the idea of doing it, making some sort of class. I don't know. We'll see what kind of time I've got, but definitely I'm interested. I've thought about it, and I'll have to figure out a little bit more about that. I was gonna do it at Gen Con again this year. We will see if Gen Con happens. I have a suspicion it won't. I'm very sad to say that. But even if things start to go better, I still think that big, huge conflagrations of specifically sweaty nerds in one big giant building are going to be probably off limits for maybe a while. You'll still be able to maybe eventually go back to stores and whatever and stuff like that. But I don't know that huge groups, San Diego Comic-Con, things like that, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see, but we'll find out. So, if things go well and Gen Con goes off without a hitch, I would hope to be able to do some seminars there. I wasn't going to do any seminars this year at Adepticons. I had other plans, so there's that. But I've kicked around the idea about doing it. Chris Baum says, have you played Conquest from Parabellum? I have not. I like a bunch of the miniatures. I think that they're really interestingly sculpted. Like, a lot of them are very, very kind of cool looking. They're very different in many ways. I'm not personally a big it's a rank and flank style game. So what that means is like if you've ever seen like Kings of War or the old Warhammer Fantasy or like Ninth Age or games like that where you're basically moving, or Song of Ice and Fire, you're moving your units like in these rectangles. You know what I mean? It's not like a game like 40K or Age of Sigmar or Malifaux or whatever where you're moving groups. Like in Malifaux, it's more of a skirmish game, so everybody can stay apart. But when you're playing 40K or like Age of Sigmar, you're moving them individually, but they have to stay within, like each squad has to stay within, cohesion, I believe is the correct term, which is fine. But that's what I prefer. I prefer moving them like that. I don't like moving in rectangles. I don't know why. It's just never been a type of game that I enjoy. I don't say that if you like it, great, that's awesome. That being said, what the smart companies are doing now, Song of Ice and Fire has been doing it, and so does Conquest. The models are on round bases, but you put them into round inserts on rectangular trays. The benefit to doing that is that you don't have to worry about, like in the old days with Warhammer Fantasy, you had to put your models sometimes into the trays in very specific positions, very specific ways. Otherwise, guy in the back is poking the guy in the front, and you're going to mess up your paint job or whatever. Well, now, and that was because they were on square bases going into, into rectangular trays, and so you couldn't. But now because they're on round bases, not only can you turn them so this guy can turn and move his spear a little bit this way and not poke his friend in the back, but also you can just use those models in whatever game you want. If you don't want to play that game, you could use those models in some other game. So I think that's pretty cool too. Actually, when I was at the GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association trade show, not last week, but the week before, Parabellum had a booth there, and I was talking a bit with some of the folks from Parabellum. They gave me a box of models to take a look at that I haven't opened yet, unfortunately, but like flame casters or something like that. They're one of the newer sets, so I think they're neat models. I have not played the game. I generally stick away from types of games like that. If they also come out with like maybe a skirmish game, which I think everybody should try to come out with a skirmish game, it's just a good way to get people into your game. And then if they go beyond that, they'll expand. But if they come up with a skirmish game, I'd take a look at it, certainly. So, like, that's not rank and flank. That's, like, actually moving, folks around. So there you go. Greetings from Mexico. Keep up the awesome videos. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I will do so. Let me see here. Is Kings of War still around? Oh, yeah. They just released their... Wait. Kings of War. Yeah. They just released their... I was thinking... Wrath of Kings from Cool Mini, which I don't think is still around. I mean, you can still buy it, but it's not. Kings of War from Mantic is still around, definitely. They just came out with the 3rd edition. Kings of War is cool. Like, here's what I think is a cool concept about Kings of War, is that instead of having to put all your little dudes or whatever, soldiers, monsters, whatever, into these little trays, you have a rectangle of a certain size, and the model, you can almost build like a little tiny diorama. So you're not in Warhammer Fantasy. Basically, the way it was is you took damage, you peeled away goblins. Like, oh, I got 20 goblins. Oh, I took 4 hits, I take away 4 goblins, and that was like your hit marker to show you how many. They don't do that in Kings of War. So you can get a little bit more creative hobby-wise with what your goblins are doing on this particular size rectangle. So you could even put some little trees and bushes in there and stuff like that. And it's almost like you're moving your diorama along with you. So yeah. Let's see here. Kelly says, "Hey Adam, I'm pumping out like 9 kill teams. No joke. Thanks for the motivation." Well, good work. I'm glad to hear it. Cool. Wish Ice and Fire didn't have such huge bases outside the norm for that purpose. Yeah, I mean I think the models look cool, but they do have pretty big bases. Let's see here. What else have we got? Greetings from Orlando. Still very new to wargaming. Appreciate your videos. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. Definitely. Let me see. Song of Ice and Fire is unique for rank and flank. Would you play that? I've not tried it. I've watched a battle report, I want to say on Ash Barker's channel, Guerrilla Miniatures Games. I watched a battle report, and it was interesting because you've got like these figures that are like part of the battle, but they're not on the table. They're doing like more political crap over here, which is sort of interesting. My wife and I are currently watching season 6 of Game of Thrones. Yeah, I think that's right. We never really kept up with it. We've just been buying it on Blu-ray once in a while. So yeah, she's read the books, so it's fine. Daquan says, I'm waiting for Oathmark. Is there any info on it? I have a copy of it. The Osprey sent it to me. That's another rank and flank style game from the same guy who did Frostgrave, from Joe McCullough. The book is very pretty. It's at my office. I haven't been to the office in like a week. I've been working from home, so I don't have it available, unfortunately. Yeah, so we'll see when I be able to get back. Definitely, yeah. Let me see here. Talking to Paul Thompson. Hi, all. Hope everyone is staying safe and staying indoors. As if we needed a reason to be inside. I won't be getting my hobby on as my girlfriend delivered a new baby boy into our lives this week. Well, congratulations. That's good. That's going to be a lot of sleepless nights probably, because babies they wake up a lot and make noises. But congratulations. Carlos asks, what exactly is rank and flank? So the two different types of game, well, there's probably more than that, but one type of game is I have a lot of models, little on round bases, and I move them as a squad or a unit, but I move them each individually. And then when they move from point A to point B, they have to be all within, let's say, 2 inches of each other. You don't have to be within 2 inches of every other model, but you have to be 2 inches of another model. So maybe you can stretch them out, maybe you can lump them up, you do whatever, and that's the way that like 40K is done, that's the way that Age of Sigmar is done, that's the way that a lot of different games are done, where you're still moving units as opposed to just individual single people. Rank and flank games, when you watch like movies like I don't know, like Lord of the Rings, when they have these huge battles and you see these huge regiments that all move in like a big rectangle, that's games like that are rank and flank games. Your models are always stuck together in a rectangle, frequently on an actual plastic tray, so you're not moving them and keeping them in a rectangle. You're actually setting them on a plastic rectangle, and you slide the rectangle along the tabletop. And the reason, so they stay in rank and file, and then because the reason those games are important to some degree is because if I have my rectangle of people attack you from your flank, your side, or your rear, I get a whole bunch of benefits, as opposed to if we go head to head like that. In games where it's a little bit more amorphous, like 40K or Age of Sigmar, directionality, there is no directionality to the unit because they're a blob. You know what I mean? Whereas when they're in a rectangle, there's definite front, side, back, all that kind of stuff. So it's just a different style of play. I don't generally personally prefer moving my units like in a rectangle. I don't like to go through all that stuff and then keep them all clumped up, but it's just a personal preference. There are plenty of people, if you like, Kings of War, like I said, from Mantic, is done that way. The old Warhammer Fantasy was done that way. Song of Ice and Fire from Cool Mini or Not, done that way. Conquest from Parabellum, also done that way. Let's see here. Good morning from California, Zim, Destroyer of Stuff. Absolutely. Gray Primer said, would love it if Game 4 added a section showing remote hobby and gaming hangouts by region/time zone. Yeah, like I said a little while ago, we are trying to figure out something like that. Initially, when we launched it, obviously people could go and do things with other people and stuff like that, and that was what we wanted to focus on. But we had been thinking on and off about trying to maybe figure out a way for people, like, because there's people who sometimes just have a hard time finding other folks in their area, even with Game 4. Maybe you live in the middle of Wyoming. Like, there's not a lot of people in Wyoming to begin with, and you live in the middle of it, so there's like not even any people around you. Whether or not they play tabletop games or not is a different story. But you still want to play your D&D. Well, you can play D&D on Discord or whatever, Skype, Zoom, whatever. So we wanted to try to figure out something like that. One of the reasons we want to be figuring that out previously was because actually Matt, who's one of the owners of the company, he plays like in at least 2. I think he plays in 3. He plays in 3 or 4 different RPG campaigns, and at least 2 of them are online, like with Roll20 and stuff like that. Maybe he plays in 3 and 2 of them are online. I don't know. He plays in a couple different online ones, and so he's like in tune with that and what that takes to do. So we were thinking about that stuff. Like, I don't play online. Like, I don't play Dungeons and Dragons or anything right now, at all right now. So I don't play any of it online. So anyway, and now obviously it's way more important than it was. So we're also trying to figure out a way to pivot that too. So we'll see there. Granberg says, "How would you support your your FLGS, your friendly local game store, during the pandemic? A store in Madison does curbside pickup for local delivery, though other stores may not be during this time. How do we support them?" While they're still allowed to be open, in different states, that's kind of changing, like here and there. I would tell you to stock up and see if they've got like a thing where they'll bring it to the door, or some stores are open but there's no more events. Some stores are open, there's no more events, and only 2 people can be in the store at once, or whatever. Some of them they bring it to the curb or whatever. There's all kinds of different things. Another thing you can do is to buy gift cards. That's also a potential thing as well. I think I saw, Moderator Matt said that, and that's a good idea. Or sometimes they can just ship it. You can order it from your local place and they'll ship it. And if you're concerned about your local shop, then you need to support the local shop, because the local shop might not make it through this. So that's something to think about. I went and picked up. What did I just pick up? Oh, I went and picked up I ordered from my local shop, because they didn't have it in stock, the Marvel game. The Marvel Crisis Protocol, whatever. There's nobody plays it around here that I know of. I've not seen it in a store, I don't think, in where I live. But when I was in Reno at that game manufacturers trade show thing, I was sitting in the bar talking to some folks. And this was before everything really started to go pear-shaped. Like, nobody was shaking hands yet. We were all still elbow bumping and whatnot, and there was a lot of hand sanitizer everywhere. But still, you're sitting in a bar talking to people and stuff. But anyway, he was a store owner from the Indianapolis area, and I cannot think of the name of the store. It starts with an S. Their logo is like a shield with an X on it, and I can't think of the name of the store. Anyway, very nice guy, and he and one of his employees were kind of convincing me I should give it a try. So, kind of partially because my initial balk at it was that the scale is weird, and I'm like, well, what about terrain? And then they were like, oh, actually that's, and I can't remember what scale it is anymore, but it's a specific scale of train, railroad trains. So like, it's not HO, it's maybe N or something like that. So, which means you could buy buildings basically either pre-built or very close to pre-built, which is what the train people like to do, and they will work perfectly for the Marvel game. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. At the very least, I paint some of the models and then maybe never play it and all that kind of stuff. But I also wanted to support my local store, so I picked it up from, I had them order it, and then I picked it up from my local shop. So there's that. But definitely try to think about your local shop if you can during this time. Joni Bass, says, taught my son to play Beastgrave this week. It's a fun game and simple enough for a family-style game. Yeah, it's a great gateway game between, say, board games and wargaming miniatures and stuff like that. I've been talking about Warhammer Underworlds for quite some time. I really do think it's a great game for that. The Noob Painter says, if you want to try Tabletop Simulator or another virtual game tabletop, hit me up. I'm doing some digging and getting things down. Yes, that's a good idea. I will also... so yesterday I had a chat, my monthly chat with the Patreon folks that I have a Patreon thing. And so there's Uncle Adams or regulars who are the $4 a month Patreon folks. And I do a live chat with them every month. It's usually the Saturday closest to the 20th of the month, which is weird, but that's how it works. It's fine. It's just I figured I had to figure something out, and that so far has been pretty good generally. But we also have a Discord server for those folks. That's set up, and in talking with them, I was going to do. I didn't get it set up yet, but I'm going to get it set up after the show. I'm going to set up a new channel, I guess, within the Discord server for people who want to do the Tabletop Simulator and that kind of ilk. So yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's still coming. That'll be coming right after the show. Snowfight says, I hear Marvel Crisis Protocol is great. Yeah, they were very on board with it, and they said they've been getting lots and tons and tons and tons of people playing it at their store. So yeah. Let me see here. Joshua Daniel Flores says, government shut down most non-essential travel and delivery here. FLGS are closed until further notice, and I desperately need basing materials. Well, if you can go out into your yard, if you have a yard, that's a good place, or even a parking lot. If you live in an apartment, sometimes there's like weird grit along the edges of the parking lot. Like honestly, Sam swears by like the majority of the stuff that he puts on his bases is stuff he finds outside, like in his yard or in a parking lot or along the edge of the sidewalk or whatever. So that's in this time. I mean, it's not even a bad idea to use anyway. Like just generally, it's actual nature. Now he still paints it and all that stuff. He doesn't just sprinkle it on there and go, look, it's dirt, and it's already dirt colored. He actually paints over it and stuff. But the actual quality of it, that's what he does. So FYI. Jesse Daniels says, next Game 4 podcast interview with someone like Gigabyte on how the community can help support FLGS from the store's point of view. Actually, a week from today, yes, a week from today, I will be putting up another sit and talk, kind of like the one I did with Sam 2 weeks ago. No, last week, where we talked about paints, and we did one about brushes a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, but anyway, I've got another one of those coming up, actually, with John Caspian from Gigabytes Cafe down in Atlanta. Marietta, technically, but right near Atlanta. And we talk about community and stuff like that, actually. So that'll be coming up on this channel like a week from today. I'm trying to get videos that kind of happen in between the every other Sunday show. So then that one will be coming up. I was actually talking with his patrons yesterday. That one will be coming up next week. And then the week after that will be another every other Sunday show. And then the week after that should be the 12th of, let's say, April? Yes. And then that should be the next battle report. And that'll be with me and John Caspian again. He came up to visit, and we shot 2 videos, a battle report and our sit and talk. And that'll be me versus his sister's battle. I'll be running Death Guard again. Excuse me, I've got a burp. Anyway, so that'll be good. And then there's going to be another one of those sit and talks, 2 weeks after the bat rep, and it'll be me and Vince Venturella, who also came up to visit like weeks ago. So we'll be talking about stuff. We talk about what it's like to be a high-end, like award-winning painter and also a good tournament player, and how to kind of balance that, because Vince is both. He's a good tournament player who wins things and also an award-winning painter. And also a lovely YouTuber who you should look up. Vince Venturella on YouTube. Definitely look him up. I'm being told that the train scale for Marvel Crisis Protocol is O scale. Snowfight says, I love that with Marvel Crisis Protocol you can mix and match heroes and villains. See, that's weird. I watched a battle report about that. And I'm like, so you can put the Red Skull and well, technically you can't. I don't think you can put the Red Skull. Well, you could, I guess. You shouldn't put the Red Skull and Captain America on the same team, I guess, because they're both leaders and they should technically be on separate teams, I guess. But you could put Baron Zemo and Black Widow on the same team, I guess. I don't know. That's not the way it happens in the movies. Anyway. Most friendly local game stores in my Florida area have stopped in-store gaming events but are still open for retail. Supporting that was easy. GW released all the rest of the Sisters of Battle, so I just pre-ordered from the store. Yeah, that's definitely the case. Adam, do you ever play Kill Team on larger tables? Seems like it would be way more, especially having kill teams like Sisters of Battle and Guard. I mean, like slightly larger tables. Like when I do my battle reports, that table is the battle report. The table I did the battle report on so far is 24 by 36. No, that's not right. Is it? Yeah, because there's 1 foot tiles. It's 20. Yeah, it's 24 by 36, I think. Yeah, that's right. It's 24 by 36 because they're 1 foot tiles from Secret Weapon Miniatures. So that's technically bigger than the 22 by 30 that the normal game is played on. So it's not too bad. Eventually, in theory, I'll also be playing on Realm of Battle boards, which will be then, because those are 2 foot tiles, I'll just use 2 of them, and it'll be 24 by 48, so it'll be kind of longer. But like a 4 by 6, no, not like a 4 by 6. I haven't played on a game that, or I haven't played that big. Uncle Adam, my friendly local game store is going to run a Necromunda campaign once everything cools down. Any idea what are the essentials for Necromunda, books and such I should buy before they close for a bit? I know there is a core book for Necromunda. You might still also be able to buy the original starter box. It's got the Eschers and the Goliaths in it. I think that also comes with the core book and also some not terrain, but like bunker doors and junk like that. I don't know anything else much about... I've been buying the models like crazy for Necromunda, but I have not really played it. I've gone through the book because I have it, and I've read it, and I'm like, all right. But I haven't played it particularly, so I'm not the best person to look at for that. I know, honestly, Ash Barker from Guerrilla Miniature Games has done a bunch of bat reps. That'd be maybe somebody to look into, or some of the other smaller channels that are also doing Necromunda bat reps. They may be checking out with them. Minis, Models, and Mayhem says Saltire Games in Indianapolis. That's it, Saltire. Yep, that was who I was talking with. The owner and one of the employees from Saltire, and they were the ones that kind of convinced me to look into MCP, as I might call it now. But yeah, that's interesting. Let me see here. Have you ever heard of one-page rules? Very simple rules for sci-fi and fantasy. They're for free, and you can use whatever minis you want. Maybe a good game for beginners. Somebody has told me about them a couple of different times. I've actually looked at them relatively recently. I think I might have been looking at it while I was in Reno. I was looking at it on my iPad. I kind of want to try it out just to see, because again, it's not a bad thing to learn about, and be like, hey, if you're interested in beginning, this is a place to begin. That's right on brand, certainly, for this channel. Also, I love the artwork that they're doing on the one-page rules. I don't know who they got doing it, but it's really cool, just sort of like digital style, very colorful, almost impressionistic, sort of like, sci-fi and fantasy stuff. It's kind of cool. I dig it. So I have not played it, but I've definitely looked over the rules a little bit, and I've looked over the website, so I want to take a little bit deeper dive into it because it's kind of neat. Snowfight says, I want to run an MCP team of all Spideys, Venom, and Carnage. I hope the rules allow it. That'd be very spidery. Dan Cook says, I'm waiting to get into Infinity, but they have metal minis instead of plastic. What is technical differences in painting plastic versus metal? Well, the one thing is that sometimes there are certain paints you can use, specifically like rattle can paints and things like that. There's certain paint you can use that will stick to plastic really, really, really well. Those paints will not stick to metal quite as well. I'm not saying it's going to like flake and fall off. I'm just saying that it just does not bond quite the same. So that's something. But yeah, so there's that. That's kind of a one issue. Now, if you're using like airbrush paints, I find that they will stick to metal about as well as they stick to plastic sometimes. It kind of depends. The problem I have with sometimes with metal minis, to some degree, is the actual gluing and building together. If there are too many parts, it can become problematic. From what I understand, and I haven't put together an Infinity Mini for quite some time, They have gotten better, I've been told, since they've moved to more computer-like design. And also, there are far fewer parts than they used to be. The first Infinity Mini that I put together was a normal, not even like a tag. It was like a normal, 28 millimeter dude, and I think it was like 15 or 16 pieces. And it was, I nearly died. It was rough. It was not great. I didn't like it. And that kept me away from that, and the rules kept me away from Infinity for a while. I don't like the rules. I don't say that they're bad. They're not for me. That's all. There's plenty of people out there who love Infinity. Infinity's great for a lot of folks. It's just not a style of game that I enjoy, but to each their own. I have been told relatively recently, like early this year, that I should take a look at the Infinity Minis again, at least for maybe a particularly other game, some other kind of skirmish game, because the new models are fewer pieces and they fit together better and all that kind of stuff. So I'm more on board with trying that out maybe in the future. But yeah, the original Mini that I built for them, well, not for them, but from them, was this like limited edition miniature that it was like a mercenary, and it came with, if you were like one of the first 500 or 750 people who bought this Infinity bag from Battle Foam, then you got this Mini for free. And he's this mercenary dude, but just so many parts. Oh my god. Yeah. Let's see here. Still, John Ashley says, still pining for a couple of the Necromunda gangs to mix into a unique Astra Militarum regiment. Well, that'd be kind of cool. Cadians, Scions, plus Vansar bits could provide some interesting models. I love the Vansar models. They're just so cool. I just really like the Vansar models a lot. I've used, so far, just one in my first warband. She's become the medic. Just because, like, the suits are really super sleek and look kind of like sealed up and kind of clean, so I thought that would be good for a medic, even though I did paint her to be sort of grungy, because that's all of my warbands are grungy in this situation, which I think is cool. Gray Primer says, are there any Kickstarters you backed that you'll be disappointed with, that you're disappointed will be delayed this year? I haven't done any Kickstarters well, that's not true. I did do a Kickstarter just recently called Planet 28. It's a very small kind of indie rule set. It's basically a person who is really interested in the whole kind of Inquisimunda, Inquisition 28 sort of style game. And like I did a video kind of about that stuff a little bit last year. I think it was in 2019. And the trick with that type of game, where you're going to take the old Inquisitor game from GW, which was like 54 millimeter models and all that stuff, and you want to take that game and try to make it in 28 millimeter, which makes Inquisition 28 or whatever. The problem is the rule set is a lot more like an RPG, and it's sort of hard to scale that back a little bit to some degree. So this guy, I think his name is Nick, from England, sat down and said, I'm just going to write my own kind of rules that are designed to be used with those types of warbands. And it was like, I think that it was like $10. It was like a really cheap Kickstarter, but it did well for him. I don't know, he raised maybe $2,000 or something like that. So that's going to be coming as a PDF, and I think a print version. He did say that he just got it off to the printers, so we'll see as far as shipping is concerned how long that takes. But it's just a book. It's just a very thin book. It's maybe more like a pamphlet. It's kind of small, but it's $10, The only other Kickstarter I can think of right now is for Monster Fight Club. I did those cool trees that they do, or they're going to be doing, and those are maybe in the country now. Like, they were like on a ship, like I think last week, so they might still get shipped to me by the end of April, hopefully. But yeah, that's basically about it. I haven't really been doing too many other Kickstarters lately because I don't know. If I do a Kickstarter, I end up with a ton of models. I take that back. I guess I did Car Wars. Who knows when Car Wars will show up? But I'm kind of used to that with Steve Jackson games. So I wasn't really expecting it to show up anyway at any point in time. I mean, I know it will eventually, but who knows? For me, Car Wars was important because I played the heck out of it in college. Like, we were crazy about Car Wars. So, and I have very fond memories of it. So that's it. Otherwise, I have not been doing too many of these. Gil Edgar asks, question, what are your technical setups during these talks? Well, so that camera right there is a Lumix G7 on a tripod. It has a 25 millimeter f1.7 prime lens on it. It is connected via mini XLR to regular size XLR, and it goes down over to here, where there is I have a Blackmagic Design ATEM Mini, ATEM Mini, which is a 4-channel HDMI switcher. I used to use this here Cam Link, which you plug HDMI into this side and USB into that side, and it turns whatever camera you plug into it into a webcam. And it works, but after about a year, it started to lock up on me. If you've watched any of the episodes in the past where all of a sudden I just froze, and then I had to go and plug it and plug back in again, that was this thing's fault. So they make a new one now, which they say does also 4K, which probably does better. It was Carlson. Carlson's frequently sounds sad, although I don't know that he always is. Anyway, so I stopped using the Cam Link and started using the ATEM Mini. And eventually I can do switching and stuff like that, but right now it's just more stable than this bad boy is. My microphone is a, what is it? It's one of those Blue Yetis. It's got a pop filter on it. That was a pop, but it didn't, yeah, it filtered it, didn't it? And I use XSplit for my software for encoding and all that shenanigans. And I have like a very simple light over here just so that I'm not in the dark. That's basically about it. Nothing fancy. So yeah. Let's see here. What else have we got? Okay. What else? As Adam is saying, the newer ones are much better. Just finished zenithaling some of the newer ones. There are fewer parts with much better thought out contact points for gluing. Still harder than plastic. Yeah, metal is always going to be a little bit harder than plastic. I mean, that just sort of makes sense. Metal is harder than plastic frequently. But I mean, it's just a little bit harder to work with. But like, frankly, most smaller companies can't afford to do plastic. The reason that, like, you go, well, yeah, but plastic's super cheap. It should be way cheaper to use. And it is cheaper to use per unit, but the mold to make a plastic miniature costs a lot more than the mold to make a metal miniature. A lot more. It will last longer, that mold, because the mold to make a plastic miniature is stainless steel, and it's basically, it clamps down super crazy hard, and then super hot plastic is injected into it. If you've ever heard of injection molding, that's what that is. I mean, all molding is basically kind of injection molding to some degree. But to make a mold, a steel mold, stainless steel mold for plastic, I've been told, I don't work in the industry, but I've been told that those molds can cost between, like on the low end, 5 to 10 grand, and on the high end up to 50 grand, depending on the complexity, the detail, the size, all kinds of stuff like that. Whereas the molds for making metal miniatures are considerably cheaper, but they also do break down, so you have to make them a bit more frequently, but generally you're also making fewer numbers of miniatures. When you're GW and you're cranking out Space Marine Rhinos for 15 years on the same mold, then over time that mold pays for itself or whatever. Whereas when you're a small company, you're cranking out 500 of a model at max, maybe, then, you might have to make the molds twice or whatever. I don't know. Honestly, Matt knows more about that because he is moderator Matt here has made miniatures, produced miniatures for Rec Age in the past. So yeah, there's more about that. Yeah. Adron says, I still think we need a cat cam for the streams. Here's the issue, is that they don't like to be, it's not that they don't like to be on camera, they don't like to cooperate sometimes. So I couldn't just like set up a camera somewhere and then just I could right now with Diesel because he's just sleeping in the basket over there. But it would be literally a static shot. He's just sleeping. Every once in a while he'll snore and it's adorable, but not always. He's not doing it right now. So yeah. Let me see here. What else have we got? Patrick C. Davis says, my wife and I are planning some international travel later this year. I am also hoping to get to TMX if it happens. Right now, TMX is planned, / was planned, for June 6th and 7th, 2020. I got an email last week, or maybe the week before, from the university, because it's held at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh here in town. I got a letter from, or not a letter, an email from the university saying that they were canceling all events through June 7th, which means that we were right on the cusp, the 6th and 7th. And then they asked me, do you want to stay penciled in case things get better? Which, of course, I said, sure, yes. I don't know, though, if it's going to happen. So now, admittedly, before I was talking about how I don't know that Gen Con's going to happen because it's 70,000 people, and that's a huge amount of people rubbing together. Like last year, TMX was 70 people, so that's a lot less. So there may be a thing that says, hey, if you want to have events that are under 100 people, that will be fine. And so maybe we'll see, but I don't know. Right now, I'm holding on to the date, and we'll see how it goes. It may end up being some sort of virtual thing. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be a Discord hangout. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But I unfortunately, I'm holding on some hope, but I don't have a lot of hope. Let's just say that, as far as TMX is concerned. So, yeah. Jonathan says, if they have collars, add micro cameras to their collars and randomly connect to them for footage. Well, first of all, I would need a camera that would be able to stream wirelessly, and I don't think that's going to work. Second, I don't know. And also none of them wear collars because they don't go outside. We don't. Yeah. Well, once in a great while we let Diesel outside, but we walk around with him. He just wants to go out and eat some grass in the backyard and then come back in. He doesn't want to go running around and doing like outdoor cat stuff, and the other cats are not interested in going outside at all. So, that's a fun one. Let me see here. What else are we at here? 12 Neef says, enjoying the podcasts. Any thought to converting YouTube videos to podcasts? I'm not sure what you mean on that situation. Like, are you talking about for the Game 4 podcast? Because we do have an audio version of the Game 4 podcast, so that's definitely there. What else do we got here? Emily says, I love TMX. I hope it happens, but whatever we have to do to be safe is the highest priority. Absolutely. That's very true. Jonathan says, our cats would roll around and try to chew their way out of the collars if you tried to put collars on them. Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. If I put a collar on my cat, he'd just flop over like a protester using passive resistance until it was removed. I've seen cats do that with those thunder shirts. Have you ever seen thunder shirts? Like, it's supposed to, like, there's certain, like, dogs sometimes when they're afraid of thunder, you can put this shirt on them that sort of holds them, and then that makes them feel more secure, I guess. And I've seen someone put one on a cat, and the cat just like flopped over out, So yeah, that's not evidently not the case. Michael asks, Uncle Adam, have you tried Conquest: The Last Battle of Kings? I've been looking at it, but I have not decided yet. I was talking about it a little while ago. I haven't tried it yet, and it's not my style of game because it's a rank and flank movement, sort of rectangles and stuff. I like the more blob style games where you move all your people in like units if you have to, or otherwise more skirmish games. But I do kind of think the models are pretty cool in a lot of situations. I saw them at the GAMA trade show, the Game Manufacturers trade show in Reno a couple of weeks ago. They gave me a box of the Flames something or others. It's in the other room. But yeah, did I put them in the basement already? Anyway, yeah, it's some of the models are pretty cool looking, and I think that's kind of neat. But I don't see them to use. I don't see myself playing that game unless they make like a skirmish version. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see here. I paid for YouTube Premium like a sucker just so I could listen to videos like a podcast. Oh yeah, so if you use YouTube Premium, because if you want to listen to like a YouTube video but not have to look at it, and you want to use your phone for other stuff, YouTube Premium allows you to do that, I guess, is what I've been told. And then that way you can just like turn on, like say something like this, and then listen to it as audio in the background and be doing other stuff with your phone, or turn off your phone, but like, turn off your phone screen and jazz like that, and then you can listen to basically any YouTube video without having to be actually like having it play on the screen, which is kind of a neat thing. Also, you don't get ads, from what I understand. So there's that too, which is neat. Let's see here. Legend says you can teach cats to walk on a leash. I've even seen some, but you need to start them young. We used to have Diesel on a leash when we would go outside, because he wanted to go out and eat grass and roll around in the driveway. We don't know why, but the grass thing I understand. That's a cat thing. Rolling around in the driveway I don't understand, but he likes to do that too. But the harness that we had him on was basically it was a shared illusion. Like we were both just like, yeah, okay, this is actually something that works. When we first got it for him, we were like, cool, he's got a harness now. We could take him and put him out in the yard when Emily, my wife, is out gardening, let's say. And then you get one of those things you screw into the ground, big screws, big corkscrew thing, and then you can attach like a dog lead to it, and then we could put him on that, and he could hang out in the yard with her while she's gardening, and that'd be great. So we did that, and he was walking around eating grass and stuff, and it was just fine until he got to the end of his leash, and he wanted to go a little further. And then, even though it was not a collar, it was a harness. He just, because he's a cat and they're basically made of fluids, he just went and just got out of the harness and then just walked over here and started eating grass. And so we were like, I see. So that's why we don't even bother with the harness anymore when we take him out, because he's not going to run anywhere. He's kind of tubby, and he's not as tubby as he used to be. He's getting skinnier because he's getting old. But he just wants to eat grass and walk around. Like if he got startled real bad, like if a truck drove up into our lawn, that would startle him and he would run. But so would me or my wife. So, and that hasn't happened, thankfully. So he's fine. You just sort of follow him around, and he just eats some grass and whatever, and then comes back in the house. Anyway, that's where that's at. So yes. Let's see here. I've just recently come across your videos. I saw you do 3D printing. I'm a huge Blade Runner fan and would like to create that world. What 3D printing system would you suggest? Thank you. Well, for terrain, I would generally suggest a filament printer as opposed to resin. There are plenty of people out there who enjoy resin printers. I did a video a while back that was not great received by, well, some people said, yes, absolutely, I agree. Other people said, no, you're a stupid moron, which is the internet. But I'm not a big resin printer fan for myself personally, because I don't, like, they can kind of smell, and there's just a lot of extra goop, and it becomes a whole nother hobby. So if you're looking for another hobby, then definitely look into 3D printing in general, and resin specifically, I think, is a way to go, especially if you want to print like models or small widgets and stuff like that need like a really high degree of detail. If you want to print terrain, then I would tell you to probably go filament printer. Generally less stinky, unless you're printing like ABS plastic as opposed to, say, PLA or whatever. Although PLA can have a little tiny bit of a smell, but I've almost never noticed it. Anyway, the problem is potentially finding buildings like that. There are companies out there that sell STL files. STL files are the files you need to print. I see a lot of Star Wars ones. I see a lot of other types of like fantasy ones. I don't see a ton of like ones that I would consider Blade Runner, but someone should. That'd be a good idea. Like if you were skilled with modeling, like 3D modeling, or just skilled artistically and wanted to get into 3D modeling, there are plenty of pieces of software out there you could probably try to learn to use as well. But like I said, I generally, when I see STL files, they're either D&D type stuff or Star Wars, which you could kind of use some of the Star Wars stuff for, like, I guess, Blade Runner. But another thing to look at for terrain that's a little Blade Runner-y. There's a company called Death Ray Designs, and Death Ray Designs makes so they do laser cut laser cut MDF, but they do have a series right now that's called New Series. And it's kind of like a cyberpunk sort of building modular set. They're really pretty cool. So you might want to look into that too. What else have we got here? George says, with this home isolation stuff going on, every morning I wake up to new models my fiance has painted. She works nights. Last night was our 2 Relic Blade teams. Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely. So that was one of the things I was going to talk about in this particular here video. So we talked about it a little bit yesterday in the Patreon live chat. I want to, and I mentioned it on Friday's video, I want to do something to try to figure out a way to get people sort of motivated, get people communicating and things like that while we're kind of stuck indoors here and in the hobby. And so I asked for some ideas. Basically what my thought is this. I find Instagram to be pretty good for looking at cool pictures and miniatures and communicating back and forth about miniatures. It's got decent messaging. I mean, yeah, you're going to see an ad from time to time. They got to pay for it somehow. Yeah, there's a bit of an algorithm to some degree, but the benefit is that you can, like, I have 2 Instagram accounts. I have like my personal Instagram account. So when I'm looking through that, I'm seeing pictures from friends and people I know. And then I also have my Tabletop Minions Instagram account, which is at Tabletop Minions, by the way, if you want to check it out. And that, when I look at that account, I'm able to see stuff that's just, like, you know, people I'm following there. So I can switch between those. Whereas when you use like Facebook, you generally have kind of like one account. And then you might have pages, like I've got a Tabletop Minions page and a Tabletop Minions group. But when I'm looking at Facebook, I'm still seeing a bunch of crap I generally don't want to see. So I like Instagram better. I understand they're both owned by the same company. I get that. But I like Instagram better for miniatures and that kind of thing. Seeing pictures of stuff people are working on, work in progress, all that jazz. So to help people, I think, maybe be motivated a little bit more and get people into it a little bit more, I really want to... Basically, I was like, I think we should try to start a hashtag and get people involved into that whole thing so people can see what other people are working on during this, and they can, give positive reinforcement. They can answer questions. They can ask questions, that kind of stuff. The Paint Showcase Club on Facebook is, I don't think, ideal, frankly. It kind of sucks, unfortunately, just because it's Facebook. So, yeah. So anyway, I asked for some ideas, and some people talked to, and I think it was Emily, actually, one of the Patreons, who suggested, I got to push a button here, boom. So hashtag shelter in hobby, which I think has got a couple different meanings to it. So like, probably a bunch of you have started, depending on where you live, have heard about this whole concept of shelter in place. I think California and New York and Connecticut and Illinois have been saying, listen, you need to shelter in place, which is government speak for stay the F at home. And that's what people are being told, and you're going to see it happen more and more over the next couple of weeks, I think. So shelter in hobby is kind of a play on words in that situation, but also shelter in hobby is kind of, in my opinion, also kind of taking shelter within the hobby, because it's hopefully keeping you happy and distracted and sane and whatnot, and so your mind has kind of got some shelter in the hobby. So I want to start having people use that on Instagram, shelter in hobby, like just show pictures of stuff you're working on, work in progress, things you've finished. Maybe set up a really cool picture with a bunch of your terrain and try to take like a really cool action shot with your stuff or whatever, that kind of jazz. And then like comments and like people going through this shelter and hobby, hashtag and looking for just a lot of communication. That's the one thing that we're really missing right now, a lot of us. There's the internet and that's great, but sometimes it's sometimes it can be, I don't know, daunting, or there's just too much other stuff, especially again with Facebook. So this is the ability for you to kind of go in and just follow like this one hashtag and just kind of like look at cool stuff when you want to distract yourself from what's going on and communicate back and forth. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I want to try to push a little bit from now on. I'm going to start putting it in. I think the maybe I'm gonna drop it either in an earlier part of the videos that I do on Friday, or I'm gonna do lots of different. I'm gonna try to work out some sort of little graphic that'll pop up from time to time during these live shows, that kind of stuff. I just think that Shelter and Hobby is a good idea. I was just trying to figure out like how can we communicate. If you don't have Instagram, you should get it. Honestly, here's the thing too, and I did a video about this a number of years ago about becoming a content creator. I think if you want to become a content creator, now is not a bad time to give it a shot. And becoming a content creator doesn't mean that you have to do the thing that I'm doing. You don't have to get into YouTube. You don't have to buy cameras and lights and crap like that. Becoming a content creator is literally just as much as you want it to be, but one of the easiest ways to do it right now is, I think, through Instagram. Because, and here's why. You mainly need one of these. You need a cell phone. You need a smartphone. It's got a camera right there. And that's pretty much that, and thumbs, I guess, or maybe a stylus if you don't have thumbs. I mean, some people don't. It happens. You can create content. You can take pictures of the stuff that you're doing. You can even make videos of the stuff you're doing if you want to. And then, you can put it out there and people can see it. And it's honestly, if you get on the right, how am I trying to say this? Hashtags work best, in my opinion, on Twitter and Instagram. And I frankly like Instagram better because it's less, you unless you're following people specifically, you see less like junk. You know what I mean? Like, the one thing I don't get on Instagram, and maybe I'm just really lucky, I never get on Instagram stuff like, oh, hey, you should follow this person. Oh, hey, you should check this person out. You know what I mean? I get that on Twitter constantly. I get tweets. I see tweets and stuff like that from the Twitter app from people that you should probably like. And I'm like, I don't like any of these people. Or maybe I'm like, well, that's slightly interesting, but I never get that with Instagram. Instagram is very much, we're going to show you the stuff that you want to see. Admittedly, sometimes they don't show you stuff that you might want to see because they do have their algorithm. Sometimes they show you stuff from 4 days ago, all that stuff. When Instagram first started, it was all about chronological order. You get to see everything you want to see. And for reasons that have to do with, I guess, advertising, I don't understand it. As a person who's working on a social platform, Game4, like, we don't use an algorithm and we don't see the big huge benefit to throttling. Like, again, we don't have as many people. Like, if you saw every single possible person, every single post from every person that you were friends with on Facebook, it might be a little weird, I admit, but I do think they go too far the other direction of only showing you certain people. Like, sometimes I see stuff from people I haven't talked to in years, but I see their stuff all the time and I don't know why. I don't ever like it. I don't react with that. I don't understand why I like this person who I went to high school with. I constantly see their stuff all the time. And I'm like, so anyway, Instagram, I think, is a great platform for people who want to dip their toe into content creation. It's not hard. It doesn't require a lot of equipment, and you can do some stuff with it. And it's a decent communication platform. Relatively low stress, at least I feel, in a lot of situations. So that's why Shelter and Hobby, hashtag Shelter and Hobby, I think, is going to be sort of the way that hopefully we can do a little bit of communication and taking our minds off of things and looking at stuff that other people are posting while they're doing it. I mean, and certainly follow other folks on Instagram as well. I mean, like, when you start to see someone who's doing cool work, you follow them, and then you see more of their stuff, whether they hashtag it or not. I mean, you can follow Sam. There's lots of people. Vince, like, all kinds of people have got these types of, have got Instagram accounts as well. And you can, I'm not saying you're going to become an influencer necessarily, but you can start to get your feet wet. And maybe someday, like, after all this is done, maybe you'll be walking around at Adepticon or something, and someone will be like, hey, you're so-and-so. I follow you on Instagram, and I really like your stuff. And that's a lot of fun. So there you go. But yeah, that's definitely something to take a look at. So Shelter and Hobby, I think, is a, and it's also, I don't know, it's not very, I don't know. I see a lot of people who are like, hashtag, apocalypse painting and things like that, and I don't know. I don't. I guess I don't want to make light of the situation too much either as part of the hashtag. That's part of me, but I'm not saying that's not for everybody. So, all right. Hello, Uncle Adam from Michigan, says Christopher Riley. Well, hello. How you doing? The lack of chronology is my big problem with Insta and Twitter. It's my big problem with all social media. I do not understand why, and this is probably why I'm not a zillionaire, but I don't understand why showing you stuff, like, we talk to store owners all the time about how we show events in Game 4 that are about to happen. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an event on Facebook as I'm flipping through my feed. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I want to check. Oh, that was 4 days ago. Why am I seeing it now? What is the point of showing me an event from 4 days ago? Oh, well, because somebody commented about it 20 minutes ago, and we wanted to show you the comment. Cool. Why didn't you show me the event before it happened? You know what I mean? So I agree. The problem is that friggin' the chronological stuff in all social media generally kind of sucks, and I don't understand it, but there you go. John Ashley Smith says, haven't posted anything on Instagram in months. Now I got something to shoot for. Yeah, I'm probably, like I said, I'm going to probably make a Friday video where I'm going to at least mention this to some degree. I might make a video just about it, but I'm probably going to mention it. I did a video a couple of years back about how to take good pictures with your smartphone, so you could look that one up too if you're looking to do that. But there are plenty of other videos out there from people about how to take decent pictures with your smartphone, And you don't have to just take it with your smartphone. Like, if you've got a fancy schmancy camera and you want to shoot pictures and then move it to your smartphone and get cool, you can do that too. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, definitely. What else? Lemonhead says, I've got a load of BattleTech stuff to get finished. I have no excuse now. Well, that is true. That's definitely. Greetings from Orleans, France. I think I might be mispronouncing that. Is it Orleans? Orleans? Anyway. The lockdown has forced me to pick up painting miniatures. Ashamedly, I had unpainted models from 1992. I love your content. Thank you for keeping us company. Well, I'm glad to do so. Good luck with your miniatures, though. That's really cool. See, that's one of the reasons, one of the reasons I like tabletop gaming, specifically wargaming like this, and miniatures, is because you can do that. You can have a drawer full of miniatures or a box in your basement, and then, how long ago was 1992? Good Lord, 30 years ago almost, nearly? Is that right? Ugh. Yeah, almost 30 years ago, 28 years ago. And you can open that box up, and then you can start working on a bunch of those models again, which is kind of harder to do with video games. You can still play old video games, certainly, but they frequently have to be repurposed, or there's all kinds of, I did just buy a thing recently that's like a little $5 doohickey, and you HDMI plug it in the back of your TV, and then you can play Pitfall and stuff on it. That's kind of cool, but it's harder to do the original, if you just were sitting on top of an Atari 2600 from the 80s, because the thing that goes in the TV is there's a bunch of work there. So there. What else? Zingbo says, this is probably the rantiest I've ever seen, Adam. Well, yeah, it is a bit of a thing. VJ Morph says, oh yeah, I just realized they still have my huge BattleTech starter box to paint. Good chance to try out Zenithal undercoating and glazing color. There we go, new project to do. Yeah, honestly, I'm a big fan these days of trying to figure out ways to, well, as you all have heard this, if you've been paying attention, I'm a big fan of finding ways to cut corners, and I'm just finding all kinds of new ones. BattleTech in general, and most military-style games, a lot of times it's pretty easy to cut corners because everything's sort of painted one color. You know what I mean? If you want to get fancy, I know Lord knows there's plenty of fancy BattleTech designs out there, all kinds of weird stuff. When you watch the video games and things like that. Like when the new MechWarrior 5 came out, I was watching some YouTube stuff about it and everything, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool, but I'm just like, why would you paint a giant... I mean, I guess it's hard to... why would you paint a mech camouflage? That seems sort of silly. Thing is 90 tons and, 35 feet tall or whatever. Or 35 meters. I don't know. It's very tall. But also, why would you paint it bright red and bright orange or whatever? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I would, if I was painting Battletech miniatures these days, I will be honest, I would probably do a lot of kind of flat colors and maybe some zenithal highlighting and some washes. I don't think I'd get real crazy and put all kinds of weird designs on them because I just don't. It seems like a lot of work, and it seems a little weird. So, long-time listener, first-time caller. Possibly a dumb question, but what primer do you recommend for airbrushing? I got an airbrush for Christmas, and it seems a great time to break it out and practice. It is. It is a great time. The primer I generally use is Vallejo makes something called Surface Primer, which sometimes they also refer to it as Airbrush Surface Primer, but it is a primer designed for airbrush. Comes in a bunch of different colors. That seems to be the one that I have the most of. But another one that's also good that a lot of people like is from Badger Airbrush, and it's a brand called Stynylrez, which is like STYNYREZ. I think I misspelled that, but it kind of looks like Wild Stallions from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but it's not. It's Stynylrez. And it's also available in tons of different colors, like reds and blues and silver and all kinds of different stuff. And it's an airbrush primer. Airbrush primer is, it's kind of important. You do definitely want to use it. But the benefit is that there's also plenty of airbrush primers now out there that are in color, so you don't have to like only do black and then do the blue. So for your ultramarines, you could just use blue to start, and then it saved you a step. So that's important. But yeah, either Vallejo or Stynylrez from Badger are the two that I've got experience with. VJ Morph says, I was just wondering what the jingling sound was. Adam has some new jewelry. Oh, I've had this for a while. This has maybe been a month or two. Vose Noctum or Vase Noctum. My latest thing is using contrast paints over silver/mithril metallics for a neat enamely look. Paint some areas of the minis in silver, and then while cloth remains white, then contrast it all. Yeah, I'm working on one guy who's in my current warband. I think I'm going to try to paint a good portion of his kind of. He's got like this. He's one of those. Is it Palatine or Palatine enforcers from Necromunda? And so he's got that kind of like big sort of shoulder thing that goes down into a chest thing, and there's a big circle on his chest. I'm thinking about painting that all in like a silver, and then just the circle I'm going to do with like a contrast color, maybe a blue. And then when I cover everything in AK Interactive and then wipe it off, it'll look all grungy and beat up and whatever, but the blue will still be a metallic blue, and it'll be quicker than trying to paint silver and then also metallic blue. You just paint silver and then blue contrast, and then boom. So, yeah. Wild Stynylrez. Yeah, so that's that's one of the primers. But yeah, it does certain contrast colors do work well over metallics. They do actually look pretty cool that way. People talking about different. Joseph Mallon here says that it's styrofoam nylon resin. Stynylrez. Helps with the spelling. That's interesting. If it's designed to be working on styrofoam, nylon, and resin, that's interesting. That kind of works. Cool. Let's see here. DMH Flip says, wow, Wild Stallions and Yar's Revenge in the last two shows. I'm having 80s flashbacks. Yeah, yesterday in the Patreon show, I talked a little bit about Yar's Revenge. We were talking about, I don't know, like video games we haven't thought of in a long time or something. I forget exactly how we got there. Let me see here. What else? David Moffat says, I like the Vallejo Mecha primers a lot so far. I haven't tried any of their new Mecha paints. Vallejo recently made an airbrush line. I think it's an airbrush line, right? They made an airbrush line, I believe, of paints that are designed for Mecha / Gundam / Gunpla, whatever you want to call that whole thing. So that's kind of interesting. But I've seen them. Where have I seen them? Oh, they were at my local hobby town. Maybe not my local hobby town. No, they were in the hobby town in Appleton where I work. Yeah, and I saw them there, and I was like, oh wow, I had not seen them in the wild yet. But that's interesting. Um, hmm. Have GW released any of the human regiments from Cities of Sigmar, or are they going to? Anybody got any info? I don't know. I would love it if they would make some new kind of human models, like Cities of Sigmar style models. That would be great. I don't know if they're going to do it though. It may be almost along the lines of like the Seraphon, where they're just like, hey, we made a new book. That's pretty much it. Like they're not. I don't know. It's a bummer. Building some Seraphim bases from scrap sprue and found plastic. Oh, I keep wanting to do a video about what to do with old sprue. I built some kind of improvised sort of walkways with old sprue and pieces of just like plastic card, even like old gift cards. Like if someone ever gives you a gift card and you're like, hey, thanks, you got a gift card, that's cool, and then you use it. Don't throw the gift card away, or don't. Sometimes they'll be like, "Hey, you want to give us the gift card pack?" You'd be like, "No," and then you take it home and you use it for plastic card for your modeling, which is fun. Gray Primer asks, "Do you think color shift paints work well on minis, or are they better on large panels? The Green Stuff World ones look amazing." I've seen some pretty cool projects with them. It depends on the model. Like if it's a real bumpy model, I don't know if it works as well. To be fair, I haven't. It's usually on larger stuff. I see it like on vehicles sometimes, but I'm going to be using it on my Tyranids, and I'm going to be using it on not all of my Tau, but the stealth suits in my Tau kill team. I'm definitely going to be using some of those Turbo Dork paints to almost make it look like they're like cloaked, so you see them and they change color, they're a little iridescent. That'll be fun. That's the idea. People talking about how the mecha paints are cool. They have a nice finish and they airbrush well. Someone else then says that mecha paints are thicker and they come up your airbrush faster, so that seems to be at opposite ends of the spectrum, but there you go. Zingbo says, I really like Allclad's airbrush primers. They're not acrylic, so you need different cleaning and more attention to ventilation than some products, but they do go on well. Who do I watch sometimes on YouTube that uses Allclad primer? Orc Painter Nerd? OPN? I think that's him. I think that's where I've heard the name before. And yeah, and he was like, he uses the stuff, and I'm like, it's not acrylic though. It's something that's, I don't know if it's lacquer or enamel, something else. Yeah, that's interesting. I've not tried that stuff, and I have not actually seen it, so yeah. Old sprue is great for testing paints and sealers. That's also true. Very good point. Alexander Roma says, I'm thinking of doing some cyberpunk style for my Tau. Anyone knows some good painters of the cyberpunk style I could follow? I mean, I would honestly tell you to start looking at Infinity. So maybe you just go on Instagram and do some searches for Infinity the Game. I think that's the hashtag that gets used frequently, is Infinity the Game, all one word. Since the word infinity, means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But yeah, that's a definite way to go there. Snowfight says, gift card used as plastic card. Awesome idea. It's like the gift that keeps on giving is what it is. You get your whatever you gift cards for, plus then you also get a little bit extra of a plastic card for free. So yeah. Let's see here. Someone just posted on one of the forums about chopping old sprue for blocks/bricks. So I was going to make a video about this years ago, but it's hard to apply to most folks. So when we bought this house, my wife and I, from my wife's grandmother, when you buy a house from family, it has a tendency to come with stuff. Like they'll be like, oh, well, maybe they want this stuff in the basement because they're family. And you're like, I don't, as it turns out. But there was something in the basement that was cool, was a very, very, very old antique style meat grinder, where you screw it onto a table. You have to really kind of tighten it down, and then you have this thing where you put stuff in the top, I guess meat, and you go, and then I don't know, other meat comes out. Not other meat. It's not like you put pork in there and you get chicken, but it's all ground up or whatever. It'd be weird if you put pork in and you got chicken. Anyway, I wasn't going to use it for meat because it was wicked old and frankly didn't look super sanitary. But I thought I'd heard somebody once talk about like just putting like grinding up sprue to make like basing material. So I was like, oh, I'll give that a try, and it works. It's a workout because whatever the plastic is that we use these days in most GW stuff. Is it ABS? I don't know. Anyway, it's hard. It's hard plastic. And so getting it to go through the grinder was hard, but not impossible. So I did make like, not a big bowl, but a kind of a bowl of sprue debris, which I have used in bases on and off once in a while. So that's kind of a fun thing. It's maybe a little bit more of a terrain thing because the chunks aren't tiny, so you can't use it on like normal size 28 millimeter or 25 millimeter or 32 millimeter bases particularly. You could use a piece here and there, like here's a chunk of something that fell off a building maybe or whatever, that's fine, but you wouldn't use a bunch of it. You might on a piece of terrain, like I said. But yeah, you can do it. I have, and I was going to I should make a video about it, but I'm like, well, where are people going to get old, beat up meat grinders? Maybe, but... yeah, but I have used it before for that kind of thing. It's kind of interesting. If you can find yourself an old meat grinder, says Aggo Guarfan, then you can have a ton in no time. That's true. If you can go to like a local, well, once we get to go out, you go to a local like whatever you call it, like a antique store and stuff, maybe find a beat up old meat grinder, you might be able to use that then for sprue. So it's kind of a neat thing. I've been told it's a mincer instead of a meat grinder. Well, that may be the case. I'm not sure. Let me see here. Got to go out into the plague lands to scavenge supplies. Well, good luck, Blade and Brush. Do you have any game mat recommendations for Warhammer 40k? I've generally mostly owned stuff from Frontline Gaming. I like their mats pretty well. I think that they're well designed, and I like the mats where it's... I kind of don't like double-sided mats too much because I feel like then they don't grip as easily because they're both side is the smooth side. A single-sided mat, in my opinion, is nice because then the rubber side sticks to the table a little bit better and doesn't slide back and forth. And then the side that you put your models and your terrain on, they slides a little bit better, so you're not, that's a personal preference. Olavsky says maybe a blender. I don't know that you'd want to use a blender. I mean, if you had one of those really super expensive blenders that can like blend a cell phone and stuff like that, if you remember like kind of old internet back in the day, there was a video series called Will It Blend where they would just take stuff. There's this company that made these super expensive blenders, and they would put stuff into it that you should not blend, and they would blend it, like cell phones and crap like that. If you happen to have one of those that you're not using for food anymore, you could probably use it for sprue. Give it a try, but most normal blenders, not so good. It will wreck the blender, possibly start a fire. So, yeah. J Solo Art says, I've got one of those grinders currently clamped to a floor joist in my basement ceiling. See, that's not a bad place, yeah. Ari Don says, Adam, I just realized with the story of the meat grinder that one of the reasons I enjoy listening to you is that you just follow the odd sidetracks with your train of thought and funny stuff comes out. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Mac Attack says, blender, bad idea for plastic sprue. Yeah, I would think so, definitely. Vose Noctum says, you can buy a cheap meat grinder on Amazon for like $10. I don't know if it would be robust enough. Maybe, you can give it a try. Joshua Rodriguez says, I use an old coffee grinder to chop up sprue. That I've never thought of. Interesting. Thrift stores are a treasure trove for mini wargaming. They can be, in some situations, definitely, yeah. What else here? Old blender with just 1 to 2 second pulses, just quick on and off a few times maybe. Again, I would be wary about how powerful the blender might be. Let's see. Estrella asks, have you tried stenciling on models with an airbrush? I've been thinking about experimenting with ways to replace decals. I have here and there. I've used it to like I have from who's it from? I forget the name of the company. Unfortunately, it's not. I don't think it's Fallout Hobbies. Fallout Hobbies. I do have some of their stencils, and I've used them a little bit here and there before. But the ones that I've used the most frequently, I can't think of the name of the company right now. But they make a bunch of stencils that have like spots, like for like animals. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, have you ever heard of there's a type of a horse called an Appaloosa, I believe, which they're generally kind of a tan or buff or white color, but then they have like more reddish or dark red or terracotta type spots kind of on their hindquarters a little bit. So I've used that on a model before where it was like a creature and I wanted it to look kind of spotty, like in certain areas. I think I've used it maybe on something bigger too, like not Nurgle, but something else bigger where I wanted it to be like green and then lighter green spots, almost like a frog maybe. I don't know. I forget what the heck it was I was painting. Anyway, that's about all I've really used for stencils that way. I have, and that, on models I mean, I've used more stencils on terrain with my airbrush. And I've even made some stencils for that. Wait, I did make stencils. I cut some Frisket film for the rhinos that I did for my old Warhammer 40k army. I made like kind of like the Black Templar cross, but I painted it in silver on a blue rhino because it was called Steel Cross. Was my custom 40k chapter. So yeah, but now I have one of those Cricut machines, so I can put Frisket film in there and I can cut out stencils and then put it on terrain. I'm actually working on a piece of terrain also in between model or regular figures. I've been doing that too. Yeah, so stencils are kind of cool. Really small stencils, trying to get them onto models is kind of hard, honestly. Again, like if you want it to like spray a little bit something on there to get like a little bit of extra kind of texture and stuff like that, some of those stencils can be cool. But like if you were going to do like a stencil star on a shoulder pad, that's going to be pretty tough, actually. Have you tried Wrath of Kings at all? The models look pretty cool. Yeah, I have. I like Wrath of Kings. I'm really bummed that it's basically not being supported anymore by Cool Mini or not or anything like that. I really like I loved House Hadros. That was my favorite. I have a bunch of those models. I thought the rule system was cool. I liked the kind of the way that they did the dice and stuff and all that. I thought it was a cool system. I'm bummed that it's not working out or that it didn't go. Gray Primer asks, what are you listening to at the minute while you hobby? Lately, I have been listening to Last Podcast on the Left. They've been doing a big, huge, I think it's going to end up being like an 8-part series about the JFK assassination. I've been listening to them. I've also been listening, I'm a Patreon supporter for the Life After the Cover Save podcast. So I've been listening to a bunch of the really old, like from like 2010, 2011, 2012. I've been listening to it because they've been putting up for the patrons. Putting up for the patrons a bunch of the old episodes. So I've been listening to some of those because they're really funny. I mean, they're talking about like 5th edition D&D, or not D&D, sorry, 5th edition 40K. So it's like old stuff, and that's fine, but I just like listening to those guys talk. So I've been listening to some of that stuff too. I picked up a new audiobook recently under someone's advice, and I can't remember what the heck it is. I haven't started listening to it yet, so. Sean Larson says, meat grinders are very good for turning old foam mattresses into ground foam. I suppose that makes sense too, yeah. What about using stencils without using an airbrush? I have not done that on models. My mom used to do that on like walls. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of a style for a while to get these stencils and like do it across like the top of your along the edge of where the wall meets the ceiling, and use this big fat stippling brush and these plastic things and paint stuff and whatever, and there you go. I don't know how well it would work against on an actual model. Any general advice to avoid the primer with rattle can to be too thick when trying to cover all the mini? Light coats. It just takes longer to do. You know what I mean? Like if you want to do that It's great. You should. But just basically light coat, let it dry, light coat, let it dry, and it takes a bunch. Another thing that's also important when you're priming with a rattle can, like outside or whatever, is to light coats and then tip your model onto its back and then kind of shoot the paint like up basically this way. You know what I mean? Like you need to be able to get them, because if you just spray them from above, you'll have gray plastic underneath the arms and in the, between the legs and all these places where the paint didn't get. So you want to be able to dust them from above, obviously, and get them kind of, start the priming there. And then once that's dried a bit, then you want to push them onto their backs and then spray it, that way. And you also want to push them onto their tummies at some point and then spray it kind of up. If you want to be able to catch it from all areas, you want to be able to do that. But again, it's all about light coats. If you put on a thick coat, you're going to lose detail. That's just the way it works. So it takes practice. It takes time. That's basically the most important thing. Definitely. Ben Barrett says, "Hail yourself, Uncle Adam. I love Last Podcast on the Left." Yes, I've been listening to it for years. Sam turned me on to it, actually. I want to say maybe in 2015, I think, is when I first started listening. It's a great podcast. These three guys, Ben, Marcus, and Henry, and they're all comedians, and but they talk about they do deep, lots of research into serial killers and that kind of stuff. They talk about not just serial killers. They talk about aliens. They talk about Bigfoot. They talk about all kinds of different things. They just did a big long series about Scientology. They did one about Jonestown Massacre. They've done them about, they did one about the Donner Party, which I had heard of the Donner Party, but to go through, it was a multi-part series about the Donner Party and what they went through and all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting that way. And they don't make fun of the people, not the victims. They don't make fun of the victims ever in these things, but they are comedians, so they are looking at from sometimes kind of a bit of a lighter angle as they can. There are some stories that just don't have a light angle, but they do try to with humor, you learn more about it, I think. I don't know. I just really enjoy listening to them. Actually, Sam and I went and saw them live in Milwaukee. I want to say it was summer of 2018. We saw them at Turner Hall, Milwaukee. It was a very good show. Speaking of old decorating fads, my mom was way into the feather duster splotch painting on walls. Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of different type of wall techniques for that, to make your walls look interesting and stuff like that. Definitely. Aimless says, "Spray them like Marilyn Monroe." See, I see what you're talking about there. You're talking about spraying kind of up, because the Marilyn Monroe, the famous thing with the wind blows up the dress and all that stuff. Same type of thing. You want to do that with your primer a little bit if you can. When you're doing it with an airbrush, it's way easier because you're probably holding the model. You're wearing gloves, maybe you're holding the model from the base, or you've got it in one of those, or you got it attached to the top of a pill bottle, or whatever it is you do to hold your models. And then you can sort of just hold it this way and spray, like that, and then catch it this way, and it's little spritz, and you're not wasting too much paint. When you use rattle can, it's a little harder, but you're probably not doing this with your rattle can. That's way too close, number one. What I do if I'm if I'm priming models with my rattle can, which doesn't happen that frequently, but sometimes it does, I end up catching them all kind of from above and as much from the sides as possible, let them sit for a bit, and then I tip them all onto their back and then spray them all, and then let them sit again another 10 minutes, and then flip them over on their tummies, and then do it that way. It's not super easy. Some models don't want to be flipped onto their tummies because of the way their arms might be positioned or whatever. Space Marines are cool because they've got usually a gun in front of them, so they're easy to either get on their back or because it's kind of a thing that sort of keeps them on one side or the other. But yeah. Let's see here. DMH Flip says, yes, that's why those wooden paint stirrers are handy to put your minis on while priming. You can hold multiple models at multiple angles, get all those hard to reach places with primer, magnetize them. I usually use poster putty, but yeah, you're right. You take those wooden things that you get at the paint store for stirring your paint, and you put 4 or 5 models on them maybe, and then you can actually outside do that with a rattle can and catch them underneath and move them around and position them a little bit without spraying it all over your hands. I did a video about using those things. When I'm doing a lot of models that have to look the same, I use paint sticks still to this day. Generally, I still use them. Like I did my Beastmen all that way. I did my Skeletons that way for Age of Sigmar. Yeah. Is Airbrush better for priming than rattle can? It kind of depends, which I know no one likes to hear that, but It is easier, I think, to prime models with an airbrush, because again, it's easier to reach in all those little weird places. You're using less paint, in my opinion. Pretty much almost always. You're wasting less paint generally. Terrain is a bit of a different story. Big pieces of terrain can be harder to airbrush, frankly, so that can be problematic. Just because your airbrush is frequently a little bit finer. You can buy airbrushes that have a bigger tip on them, designed to be almost more like a fan spray. That's fine. The other thing I find, though, is that there are plenty of rattle can primers that I like to use frequently are not actually primers. I'm a huge fan of using Krylon or Rust-Oleum if you have to. I prefer Krylon, but sometimes Krylon can be hard to find. Both of those lines make a 6-color set of camouflage colors. So there's usually black, dark brown, 2 different greens, like a light olive green and a darker olive green, and then 2 different tans, like a sand and a darker sand. I don't know. The big benefit of those things is that they both Rust-Oleum and Krylon have something in them that makes those paints specifically stick to plastic really, really, really well. So if you have a plastic terrain kit that you bought from somebody like Malifaux, they make those cool houses now, or GW or whatever, starting out by priming them with those colors is really nice, because that stuff will stick like crazy. Also, it's a bigger spray that you're spraying onto it, so it primes quicker. You can prime with an airbrush, certainly, but because terrain has a tendency to get picked up and moved around and bumped into and stuff like that, sometimes it'll chip a little bit, so it depends, but it depends on what kind of primer you use as well. But generally, if I can, I try to, specifically if I'm doing like 3-dimensional floor pieces, like those tiles I did for the Bat Rep, those from Secret Weapon Miniatures, those tiles are hard plastic, and I primed all of them initially in black with the Krylon camouflage black. And the reason you use the camouflage colors is because they're super matte. Camouflage should never be shiny. Camouflage should always be a matte color, and when it's a nice matte color, it's very easy to put paint then on top of it. If you try to paint on top of a glossy color, frequently the paint, if it's too liquid, will bead up and not soak in. Paint needs a slightly porous kind of thing to soak into, and that's why you prime usually. So anyway, that's my answer about that. I generally use rattle can on bigger pieces of terrain, but for miniatures, I almost always want to prefer to use it with an airbrush because it's just quicker and easier. And also I can do it in the middle of winter, so there's that too. All right, so that's the end of the show. So again, if you're not on Instagram, you should hop on Instagram, start an account, become a content creator right there on Instagram, start showing off people your cool models, hashtag shelter and hobby, and definitely try to stay happy during this whole thing, and keep yourself distracted, keep yourself happy, and share with other people the work you're doing while you're doing all this, and communicate back and forth. Go through the you don't even have to post stuff. If you don't want to post stuff, just go through once this thing hopefully starts to get rolling, this shelter and hobby, and if you can share it with folks, let people know about it, that will help as well to spread the word. If you can shelter and hobby, you just go through the hashtag and like and comment and respond to other people's work, even if you're not working on anything right now yourself. Just find ways to distract yourself, and give it a try. So everybody stay safe. Don't touch your face too much. To do what your government's telling you to do as far as staying indoors or whatever, and try to do as much of that as possible as you can, and keep yourself sane. So I will see you folks in 2 weeks, and we will do this again. But again, like I said, next week at 9 a.m. there should be a pre-recorded video that'll be up here in this spot, and I'll keep doing the Friday videos, and I'll keep talking to y'all. So we'll see you hopefully all soon, and again, stay safe and keep your fingers out of your face.